Okay, so we are continuing with the amazing series of the art of being human. And for tonight's human trait, so I want to speak about something that's actually connected to the Parashat HaShavua that we had yesterday. And this is, I don't think we would consider this a trait in the conventional terms, but I want to speak about Yirat Hashem. Yirat Hashem is something that comes up in yesterday's Parsha. That Yirat Hashem, I'll call it for now respect of Hashem, and we're going to get to that. Like, it's sometimes inappropriately translated into fear of Hashem, which I think is not so accurate. And it's something that comes up in yesterday's Parsha, and it's a very basic thing. We're going to talk about how it's a very, very fundamental thing in life, fundamental thing in Judaism, and we find it in yesterday's Parsha that when Avram comes to Gerar, so he says that the reason why he said that Sarah was his sister and not his wife, because he noticed the rak ein yirat Elokim b'makom hazeh v'haraguni al dvar ishti. That I noticed that there's no Yirat Shamayim, that people don't have fear of Hashem over here, and because there's no Yirat Hashem, so then they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me, Nebuch. They're going to do murder. They're going to take away my life, and so we see that the place of Yirat Hashem is the Yirat Hashem. Without Yirat Hashem, there is no such thing as morality. Okay? What Avram was saying to Avimelech is that there can't be any morality if there's no Yirat Hashem. And this is something that I think is something that in itself is a very powerful statement. It's a very powerful thing that a person can claim to be a moral person. A person can claim to have values, to have virtues, to have a way of living life, but he doesn't have God. He doesn't have God. So the Torah says that if you don't have God, you don't have values. If you don't have God, then you don't have morals. That it's completely impossible. It's completely impossible to have true morals if there is no God. And I think that the rationale behind this is very simple, and that is that if there is no higher power, if there isn't something, nobody that I need to answer to, so then basically I'm doing it because it feels good to me. So a lot of the times, so the reason why what feels good to me is actually to be a good person, because we're normal, we're programmed to feel good if we're good people. But sometimes it's going to be more comfortable to be good to myself. Sometimes it'll be like if I just like this guy's wife, and the thing that's holding me back from having her is the fact that she's married, so okay, no problem. Maybe I won't do it myself because it's a little bit bloody. I'll just hire a hitman, but I'll just get it done because at this moment, so what's more comfortable for me is to have this guy's wife. So that if there's no higher power, so if I don't like this guy's wife, so then I'll be so nice to him, and I'll invite him for a Shabbos meal, and I'll smile at him, and I'll give him tzedakah, and I'll be respectful, and I'll listen to him, and everything he needs. But at the moment that my personal needs are different, so then I'll tweak my moral standards to fit what works for me, because ultimately, if there is no higher power, so it's all about what works for me, right? There's no concept of morality if there is no higher power. So a person that claims to be an atheist and yet believes in good and good and evil, so he's actually contradicting himself. Really, it's impossible to have a moral standard if there is no God, if there is no higher power, and this is really a built-in problem with anybody that claims to be atheist, but yet believes in the concept of morality. And this is also, by the way, if you want to speak to somebody about God that doesn't feel that they have any connection to a God, they have no connection to Emunah. So, a way to tap into this innate Emunah that they actually do have, because and if you're a Jewish person, that you're born with Emunah, that it's impossible for you not to have Emunah, and so you just need to tap into it. You need to allow it to reveal itself. And sometimes the way to tap into the Emunah is by recognizing that, hey, you are a person with values, you are a person with morality, you are a person that believes in right and wrong. What is that right and wrong? That there is no right and wrong if there is no God, if there is no higher power. So this is the first level of understanding that if there's no Yirat Shamayim v'haraguni al dvar ishti, that without a fear of heaven, so without this understanding that there is a boss, there is somebody who's writing the rules. It's not the Wild West. So then there is no room for morality, and even murder can be justified because like at the moment, like I thought it was good. Like at the moment, it worked for me. I mean, like the same thing. The same thing could be argued in many situations. Like sometimes, like things that halacha deems as murder, such as euthanasia, so how to say compassion killings, and certain abortions in certain situations, things that suicide in certain situations, that things that the halacha deems as murder, but a person could morally give a sound argument why this makes sense. So if there is no higher power, so I can tweak the rules to make it for now, I don't consider this murder. I don't, and the same way that you don't consider this murder because it works for you, so somebody else could say, I don't consider this murder because she is a shame to the family, or whatever. And you could justify horrible things. You could say that I don't consider this murder because Jews aren't humans. I don't consider this murder because I have a crazy way of looking at it. And what works for me right now is that I'm not going to consider this murder. So if there is no higher power, if there is no Yirat Shamayim, so then there is no basis of morality. So the first thing about Yirat Shamayim that we see in yesterday's parsha is that Yirat Hashem is actually the very basis of morality. Now, what's very interesting is that if you look in the sources, if you look in the Tanakh, so it talks about Yirah as a very, very basic, fundamental element of the human experience. And I want to start with two psukim. One of them is very famous because it made it into the first two lines of the Siddur. And that is the pasuk in Tehillim Kufil Aleph. It says, "Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem." Right, Master said this right after Mordechai Ani. So it says, "Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem," and it's a pasuk in Tehillim. And what does it mean? That the beginning of wisdom is Yirat Hashem. Okay, so that the first point, if you want to have any kind of wisdom, so before you have wisdom, so you need Yirat Hashem. Or in other words, that Yirat Hashem is the starting point from which you can come to wisdom. If you don't have Yirat Hashem, you're not going to come to wisdom. Okay, so you can know the entire Wikipedia, you can know the entire ChatGPT, and if you don't have Yirat Hashem, so then it's all worthless. That's not called chokhmah. That's not called wisdom. You're not called an intelligent person. You have a lot of information, but you haven't got anywhere. Without the very basic premise of Yirat Hashem, so then you haven't even started to achieve Chokhmah. And the same thing is true with Da'at. The pasuk says in Mishlei, in Parak Aleph, that Yirat Hashem Reshit Da'at. Yirat Hashem Reshit Da'at. That the fundamental place, the starting point to get to Da'at. That is the ability to make understanding, to make decisions, the ability to understand life. Okay, it's that you can say that Chokhmah is intelligence and Da'at is wisdom. There's different ways of translating it. It's different levels of understanding life. And the pasuk says in Mishlei that Yirat Hashem Reshit Da'at. That you can have no Da'at. You cannot have Da'at. If you don't have Yirat Hashem, so then you can't have Da'at. So what does this mean? What is this fundamental? How is Yirat Hashem such a fundamental way of experiencing life? How is this such a fundamental thing that before I understand anything, before I know anything, so it can't be considered that I know anything, I can't be considered that I understand anything if I don't have Yirat Hashem. So there's something very, very basic about Yirat Hashem, and so it makes a lot of sense that really the source of all Yirat Hashem is actually in the very beginning of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elokim. So first of all, there's the famous statement in the Tikkun Zohar, that the Tikkun Zohar has 70 different ways of explaining the word Bereshit. Just the first word. The first word of the Torah has 70 different explanations. And it says one of the ways of understanding the word Bereshit is Yarei Boshet. Yarei Boshet, that a fear which brings a person embarrassment. That fear of Hashem, that he's embarrassed to do the wrong thing. So that is the Bereshit. That is the first thing, that before you have a world. So you need this concept of fear that brings a person embarrassment of doing the wrong thing. Right? It's built into the very fabric of creation. It's built into the very first word of the entire Torah. And let me read to you what it says in the Zohar. The Zohar says in the Hakdama Chaf Aleph, in the Zohar it says like this: Bereshit bara Elokim, hadar pekuda kadma l'kula. In these three words, Bereshit bara Elokim, this is the very first mitzvah. The very first mitzvah before any mitzvah. Ve'ikri pekuda da Yirat Hashem. And this first mitzvah is called Yirat Hashem. De'ikri Reshit, because Yirat Hashem is called Reshit. Dichtiv Reshit Chachma Yirat Hashem, because it says in Tehillim Reshit Chachma Yirat Hashem, Yirat Hashem Reshit Dat. It says the pasuk of Mishlei, the beginning of Chachma, the beginning of Das. V'dahi Tzara le'ala go mehemnuta. This is Yirat Hashem is the gate through which a person can enter mehemnuta, can enter emunah. You can't have emunah if you don't have yirah. The apikuda da is kayem kol alma, and because of this mitzvah, so the entire universe is sustained. That without this, there is nothing. There is no world. There is no mitzvahs. There is no chachma. There is no das. There's nothing. So we're going to get to this. That it talks about that Yirat Hashem is an introduction to emunah. That we see this also in the psukim by the Shivat Hayam. We say this in the Az Yasher. Vayiru ha'amat Hashem vayaminu b'Hashem b'Moshe Avdei. That they feared Hashem and they believed in Hashem. Vayaminu b'Hashem vayaminu b'Hashem. That first they feared Hashem, then they believed in Hashem. Okay, and there's something fundamental about Yirah that if it wouldn't have been for the Yirah, then there wouldn't have been any place for Emunah. Okay, so let's try to understand what this means. How is Yirat Hashem? How is this the first entrance to Judaism, the first entrance to life, the first entrance to Bereshit, the first entrance to understanding, the first entrance to Emunah? Without this, there's like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. There is nothing. There is nothing without Yirat Hashem. So I want to share with you something that I saw. The sefer from Rav Shlomo Valba, Zachar Levracha. He wrote a sefer called Alei Shar. And in this book Alei Shar, so he quotes from his Rabbi Yochanan Vavos, Zachar Levracha. Yochanan Vavos was was amazing Rav. He was a mashgiach in the Meir Yeshiva, he was a mashgiach in the Panevish Yeshiva, and he was Talmud of the Alter of Kelm. And so he said on this that why is it that without there's no emunah without Yirat Hashem. So without emunah, without Yirat Hashem, so it's like you're talking to a drunk person. Try talking to a drunk person about emunah. It's worthless. You're wasting your time. Yirat Hashem is sobriety. Yirat Hashem is the thing that just like that I'm talking to somebody, that like there's someone to talk to, that there is some kind of like rational conversation going on, that before Yirat Hashem, so like nothing means anything. So I can't begin to have emunah before there is this basic thing of Yirat Hashem. Then he quotes from him that what is the most fundamental thing of Yirat Hashem? Yirat Hashem is the understanding, the consciousness that I am a creation of a creator. Okay, the most basic understanding of Yirat Hashem is that I should be conscious of the fact that I was created from a higher being. Okay, that there is God and there's me. And there's a very interesting thing. I think that this is very reminiscent of an idea in psychology that there was a Jewish psychologist by the name of Margaret Mahler. She's come from the school of Freud, and so she developed this thing called the separation individualization theory, and it talked about the fact that a baby, and this is like I believe that psychology still believes this, that for the first few months of a baby's life, so there is nothing besides themselves. And that even though the baby reacts to the parents, but when the baby is reacting to the parent, but it actually looks at the parent, it actually feels that the parent is an extension of themselves. There is no such thing as me and my mommy, that it's all me. There is nothing besides myself. And only like 5 months, 6 months into the baby's life is there such a concept of that there's me and my mommy. There's two different things. So when I saw this, so it reminded me of something that I saw once that I don't usually like to quote him. I don't usually like it's okay to quote like psychologists that aren't from, but to quote Jewish sources that aren't from is more problematic to me. But I think it's very relevant here. It's a famous Jewish thinker that he was not Bikaris, so I wouldn't trust him necessarily. But his name was Martin Buber, and he wrote a famous book called Ich und Du, Me and You, or I and Thou. He didn't write I and Thou. He wrote Ich und Du. Okay, so in American it's called Me and You, and so he writes that in our relationship with God, that the I only becomes through the Thou. That if there is no Thou, there is no I. Right? That as long as that I look at myself as one with God, so then there's no place for a relationship. If I look at I'm one with you, then there's no place for a relationship. And that I only have an identity as much as there is an other. Right? And so only through recognizing the separateness do I actually have a relationship. Do I actually have an identity? And through my identity, I can have a relationship, right? So this is a very powerful idea. That the first thing I need to know about God is that He's separate, is that He's not me. And this is a famous Kabbalistic idea that I don't think he was aware of. That in Kabbalah, so we talk about God in two ways. Okay, it became more famous because Zusha has a song about it. That Hashem is memali kol amin v'saviv kol amin. Hashem fills all the worlds and surrounds all the worlds. And so there's two elements. There's two ways to relate to Hashem. The Hashem is memali kol amin. He fills all the worlds. There's an immanent God and there's a transcendent God. And the transcendent God is that Hashem is beyond. Hashem is out there. Hashem is in the skies. Hashem is in the heavens. And there's the immanent God that Hashem is the very fabric of our existence. Hashem is in my soul. If I want to look for Hashem, I just need to look inside my heart, and I can find Hashem. If I look inside the molecules of every chocolate muffin, I can find Hashem. I don't have to look very far to look for Hashem. Hashem is everything and everywhere, and He's the energy of everything. And there's two different ways of relating to Hashem. And in a certain sense, a person could claim that there's some schools of thought that are more connected to a transcendent God, and there's more schools of thought that are more connected to an immanent God. And I've argued in the past that the Litvish view was more to deal with the transcendent Hashem, and that we're of a bittul and we're serving a higher power, and the Hasidic view is more connected to connecting to yourself and connecting to Hashem's that's revealing Himself through your heart. But the truth is that they're both existent. They're absolutely both true, and nobody can deny the fact that there's two ways to come to Hashem. And so in this sense, so what the Torah is saying is that the very first mitzvah, the very first way of relating to life, the first way to relate to existence requires the understanding of a transcendent God, which is what's called Hashem is Seviv Kol Amin. Hashem surrounds all the worlds. And this is the very first thing that a person needs to know, that there is, it's not just me. It's not just me, that there's an other. There's no other and it's through this other that I have an identity. It's through this other that I am recognizing this other. And this is what makes me relevant. And so the opposite of having this I and thou, if you will. So this is lack of boundaries. This without healthy boundaries. So in psychology, what's this called? Enmeshment. Oh. Yeah, this is when you don't have healthy boundaries, it's called enmeshment. So it's called, and when you have when you have this reality of enmeshment, so then I become part of you. I'm in these toxic relationships where I'm feeling responsible for other people's emotions, and I'm ignoring my own emotions, and I don't have the space to say no, and I feel I'm triggered, and when there's no healthy boundaries, so then there is no sense of self. Okay, that can't be, that you can't have a relationship if there's no healthy boundaries. Now, And this is, like we know here in Nachlaot. So when we talk about this feeling with God, of just feeling one with the universe, so what's that called? A psychedelic trip, right? Like when you're tripping, so like everybody talks about how that this is exactly how they feel. They're like, there is no, I completely lose my ego. There is no I and thou. There's just like we're all one. And so I think the Torah is saying that like that's called an enmeshment. That's called you have no emunah. You have no emunah because the Zohar says that without Yirat Hashem there is no emunah. That Yirat Hashem is the shar, is the tara, it's the gate through which we come to emunah. Because if there is no I and thou, so then who do I believe in? I believe in myself. I believe like it's all there. There is no emunah is a relationship. Emunah is that an acceptance of a higher power and a relationship with a higher power. And if there is no separateness between me and Hashem, so then there is no place for a relationship. There is no place for emunah. Okay, so this is the very basic thing of Yirat Hashem, that is the most fundamental thing. Bereshit. This is the first thing in existence. The first thing that you need to know is that there's God and there's you. Okay, and so without this, like nothing. There's no place to start. There's no place to have an existence. There's no place for Judaism. There's no place for Torah. There's no place for Emunah. There's no place for nothing. That the very first, it's a mentality. It's a way of looking at life. That there's me and there's God. And so this, in a very simple sense, this rachis, this first way of looking at life. So the Zohar, this very first Zohar that we quoted in Hakdama Chav Aleph, that he says that this is the very first mitzvah. This is you can't come to anything before this. So the very next paragraph, it goes on to say a very famous statement, and that is that there's two levels of emunah. There's two kinds of emunah. There's one level of emunah which is called Yirat HaOnesh. That is called that you have Yirah, which is motivated by punishment. And then there's another level of Yirah. And there's another second level of Yirah is called Yirah Begain De'u Rav Shalit. That a Yirah which is motivated by the fact that Hashem is great and powerful. There's a term which is used in Sfarim which calls it Yirat HaRamamut. I'm not exactly sure who coined that phrase, but like in the Zohar it's called Yirah Begain De'u Rav Shalit. That it's Yirah from the greatness of Hashem. So I want to try to understand what are these two levels of Yirah. So we're going to start with the first one, which is Yirat HaOnesh. So the most common way of translating Yirat HaOnesh is fear of Hashem, fear from punishment. That simply that I'm not going to eat pork because if I eat pork, so I believe that I'm going to burn in hell, and I don't enjoy the feeling of burning in hell, and it doesn't sound attractive to me. So because I don't want to burn in hell, so I will abstain from eating pork. I would really love to eat pork, but as much as I love to eat pork, I dislike burning in hell. So it's just like it's a question of just my lust to not burn in hell is greater than my lust for the pork, and that's the. Now, that's basically what Yirat HaOnesh means. That I abstain from doing bad things because of punishment. By the way, that the desire for reward is the very same thing as the dislike for punishment. Right? The person that if I want to do something because I want to get a reward, so that's also not inherent. That's also not innate. There's nothing real about wanting to do something because I want to be rewarded. That a person that's going to learn a lot of Torah because they believe that if you learn a lot of Torah, then when they die, then they're going to have a wonderful, wonderful life. Then that's called that you don't really believe in mitzvahs. It's just that you like reward. You like reward. Like you like ice cream. You like ice cream, and you're told that Olam Haba, it's even better than ice cream. Even better than ice cream. So if I like ice cream, I'll probably like Olam Haba. Like some midrash says, like it's like we're eating fish. We're eating a sudasa shalav yasan. There's this fish meal. It's very delicious fish, And so if you don't like fish, then nothing to look for. Try a different religion. If you like this different religion that offers you virgins, So if there's the opposite of yonesh is something inherent. That's what the Rambam calls doing something from ava, from doing something because you believe in truth, right? So now I think there's something like I started Labiot. I started the class with this that I don't think that the appropriate translation of Yirat onesh is fear of punishment, because I don't like the word fear as relating to Hashem, and the word fear in the English language, so generally speaking, has a negative connotation. I fear someone who's dangerous. I fear a murderer. I fear a kidnapper. I fear a burglar. I fear somebody who's going to make fun of me. I fear somebody who's going to push me. I feel somebody who's going to ignore me. I feel somebody who's going to make me uncomfortable in some way. And the people, if you think about the people that you fear, so it's always bad people. It's always you don't fear good holy people. You fear bad people. So I don't think it's appropriate to use the word fear when it comes to Hashem. So what does it mean exactly? That we have Yirat onesh, we have fear from Hashem, which is based on onesh. So if Hashem is this mean guy that has this whip, and when we don't follow him, so he's going to punish us. So I think that's a horrible way to look at Hashem. And I think that if that's going to be your motivation of Hashem, if the motivation to keep Torah requires that you look at God as a predator, as somebody dangerous, so then I think that you're better off not keeping Torah. I think better to know that Hashem is beautiful, better to know that Hashem loves you, better to know that Hashem is perfect, and not do anything, but than to think that Hashem is a horrible predator and keep his mitzvahs. Because if you look at Hashem as a disgusting thing, so then that's even worse than not keeping the Torah. It's comparable to heresy. It's comparable to atheism. It's to look at God as anything but perfect is much worse than anything you could possibly do. So I don't think that's an appropriate terminology. I'm not saying that anybody that uses the terminology actually thinks that that's what Hashem is, even though it's very possible that they do. But I certainly think that it's an inaccurate translation, and that's why I think that the more appropriate translation of the word Yirat Hashem, Yirat onesh, is a respect for consequences. When we talk about Yirat onesh, it means that there's a certain respect. It means that there's a certain appreciation of the fact that there's a reality here. In other words, that if you ask me why don't you drink bleach? So the reason why you don't drink bleach is not because you're afraid of what's going to happen. It's not. There's no fear element. There's simply an appreciation of the fact that the bleach is going to burn your body, is going to kill you, and so because you have an appreciation of the consequences, so you're not going to do it, right? So when a person has an appreciation of the fact that in the world of spirituality, so when you eat pork, so it's like drinking bleach. So then you're not going to eat pork because you understand that on a spiritual level. So I'm just bleaching my neshama. I'm just killing my neshama. It's poison. It's simply poison. And so to understand that there's a spiritual reality, so it doesn't require any fear. It's simply a respect of a reality. Okay? To understand that there's a world of spirituality, to understand that I'm here for a reason, and and moreover that I have a responsibility. That it's not just that there's the consequences of what I do, but there's also a responsibility that I have to stand up for myself, because I have a responsibility to do the right thing. I have a responsibility to take care of my neshama. I have a responsibility to take care of. It's not just spiritual things. It's even interpersonal things. That the only reason, like we started this class by saying that without Yirat Hashem, so I could literally murder somebody. The only reason why I have a moral responsibility is because I understand that, first of all, that the world is not the Wild West, that there is a higher power, that I have to answer to God, and God is going to decide if this is the right thing or the wrong thing. And I don't get to decide. There's an objective truth. And secondly, I'm responsible to that higher responsibility, to that higher truth, to that objective truth. And if, according to that objective truth, I'm doing the wrong thing, so I'm going to have to answer to that higher truth. Okay, there's an element, Yirat Hashem is that, first of all, an acceptance of the fact that there is a higher power, that there is an objective truth. And secondly, that I am responsible to answer to that higher power. Okay, that's a very basic level of Yirat Hashem. So now the Zohar says that that's the first step. That's what it means Yirat HaOnesh. To have an understanding of the fact that I am a creation, Hashem is the creator, and there's this separateness, there's this healthy boundaries. There's healthy boundaries that there's God and there's me, and because there's God and there's me, so I don't call the shots. I'm not God, and so therefore I need to answer to a higher power, and so this is the thing that Rabbi Yochanan says, that this gives me sobriety. This snaps me out of it. That until I have Yirat Hashem, so I was like this infant that thought that like, it's all me. Like there is nothing besides me. I do whatever the heck I want. And that is exactly the way an infant lives until 5 months old. Now, sometimes you meet people that you say like, like I understand that you're 50 years old, but like you're acting like a 7-year-old. But like now we're saying that like you can have a 50-year-old person that's acting like a 4-month-old. This is that you don't recognize that there's something beside you. Like you're still in this very infantile state, that it's all you, that there is no other. Okay, that there is no separation. So the first step of Yirat Hashem, which is the shar to Amunah, which is the gate to Amunah, is the guide to morality, is the understanding of the separation, the understanding that I have a responsibility to an objective truth, and this is really the very first thing. This is the very first thing in life. Like without understanding that I don't call the shots. There is an objective truth, and I need to live up to this objective truth. It's a very high level. Once you're very mature once you've understood this. Okay, and that's Yirat Hashem. That's Yirat HaOnesh. That's the first level. That's the beginning. That's the Nukudah HaTchalatit. That's the Reishis Chachmei Yiras Hashem. That there is no Chachma without this. There is no Das without this. Then you're ready to begin life. And then says the Zohar. So then there's a higher level of Yira. Then there's the higher level of Yira. That is the Yira which it calls Beged Di'u Rav Shalit. And this is something that is a Yira that comes from the fact that Hashem is so awesome. Meaning that I can't cross Hashem, not because I'm scared of what's going to happen, not because I'm scared of the consequences, not because I'm aware of the consequences, but rather that even if there wouldn't be consequences, just Hashem is so awesome, Hashem is so great, that how could I cross Him? How could I go against Him? That Hashem is just so perfect and so powerful. And so this, that we said before that Yiras Hashem is the Nekudah of Haschala. This is Bereshit. Reishis Chachmei Yiras Hashem. What's fascinating is the Yira is not only the beginning, it's also the end. Shlomo Melech says at the end of Koheles, Sof Davar Hakol Nishma. At the very end, the very thing. So then we're going to hear what's the truth at Hashem Yirah. Just fear Hashem. That's the last thing. The last thing that you have to know about life is to fear Hashem. Okay, so besides being a beginning, it's also an end. Also in the Torah itself it says, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shah Me'imach Kiyim Yirah. What is it? The bottom line, what is the very thing that Hashem requires from you? What is it? At the end of the day, what does Hashem want from you? Yirat Hashem. Kiyim Yirah. Right, so the Torah talks about this as like this is what Hashem wants from you. This is the final goal. The final goal of life is to come to Yira. Okay, so the Yira is also a beginning, and it's also an end. Okay, so obviously the beginning point is Yirat HaOnesh. The beginning point is the understanding of consequences, and there's an end point, and the end point is this higher level of understanding, this higher level of consciousness, which is what's called Yiras HaRememus. So what is this? So there's something very beautiful that I once heard from a Moshe Shapiro Zachar Levracha, that it says, we say in the Shemana Esrei, we say that Hashem is Gadol Gibor V'Nora. Hashem is Gadol Gibor V'Nora. And so it says in the Rishonim, it says in the Zohar, that Hashem, we say Hashem is great, Hashem is mighty, and Hashem is awesome. Hashem is awesome. So it says that Gadol is corresponding to Abraham. Gibor is corresponding to Yitzchak, and Nora is corresponding to Yaakov. Okay. So Abraham is the Midas HaChesed, and that Gadol is corresponding to Chesed, and Yitzchak is corresponding to Gevurah, is corresponding to Yiras Hashem, Pachad Yitzchak, and Yaakov is corresponding to Mora. Mora means awe. Mora means awe. And so Yaakov, in Kabbalah, so Yaakov is the mixture of Avraham and Yitzchak. So Avraham represents love and chesed, and Yitzchak represents pachad, represents gevura, and boundaries, and Mora, Yaakov represents the merging of the two. So what's Mora? So he said that Mora is this feeling of awesomeness, that if you meet somebody that you're awestruck, you're starstruck by this person, right? So how do you feel, right? If Taylor Swift would be outside right now, and so you would die, right? So you would. Why are you dying? You're dying because you hate her. You die because you don't want to be. You're dying that you have these two opposite feelings at the same time. That on the one hand, that I more than anything in the world, I want to come close to this person, and at the same time, more than anything in the world, I can't come close to this person because they're so great. And those two opposite feelings at the very same time, that's called Mera. That's the awe. That's the feeling of awe that a person, when you see somebody that you have awe from, so then at the same time you have this chesed, this feeling of chesed, of desire for connection, but at the same time you need distance because you know that how could I talk to this person, and so that's the true feeling when a person comes close to Hashem. So that there needs to be these mixed feelings of a desire to be close from a place of love, and at the same time to understanding that how can I come close to Hashem? Who am I? Hashem is awesome. Hashem is a fire. Hashem is so infinite, and so I can't come close. I know I can't. I'm scared to come close, and that is having to it's an emotion in and of itself. It's an independent emotion, which is actually the merging of the feelings of ahava and yira, of chesed and gevurah. So that's the midah of Yaakov. That's why Yaakov, when he comes to the Beis Hamikdash, so he says, "Ma neira makom hazeh, ma neira makom hazeh, ein zeh ki im beis Elokim v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim." That Yaakov Avinu, he's the one that reveals Meira. He's the one that reveals that this midah of yira began to ira v'shalit. That yira, awe, from the fact that Hashem is so great, from the fact that Hashem is so powerful. So I have this feeling of yira. So this is a feeling of being paralyzed from greatness, but not because I'm scared, not because I don't want to be close, because I want to be so close, but just because He's so great. So I'm just paralyzed, and this is the feeling. This is the feeling of Ein Od Milvado. This is the feeling that when I'm I no longer exist. When I'm living in the realm of Yirat HaOnesh, so then I'm existing. I certainly exist. There's I and thou. There's mamish I exist. And I have my morality, and there's no feeling that I need to come close to Hashem. I need to distance myself from Hashem. I'm scared of Hashem. It's just He's Him. I'm me. I live according to morality. I realize that He's the boss, and when it comes to Yiras HaRemes, so then suddenly there's a feeling of relationship. Okay, suddenly that it's impossible to have Yiras HaRemes without having Ava, and that's why it's a very fascinating thing that the Rambam. So he talks about the difference between Yira and Ava, between Yirat Hashem, between respect of Hashem and loving Hashem, and he says that Yirat Hashem, that's only good for the simple people. That's only for the lower class people. That for the women and the children, but a person should outgrow that, and a person should come to serving Hashem forever. And that's the level of Avraham. He says that Avraham says Avraham Oavi, that Hashem served Hashem from Ava. So in the Rambam it's very clear that there's Yira on the lower level and Ava on the higher level, and then in Kabbalah it says that it's more complicated than that. That there's lower Yira, and then higher than that there's Ava, and then higher than that there's the higher Yira. That Yira Ilah, that the higher level of Yira is actually the goal. And that's what we said. that sof davar hakol nishma, that the goal after everything, after you start with the recognition of the I and thou, you start with the recognition that there's rules. Then you elevate yourself from that to ahavat Hashem, to loving Hashem, and then after the ava, then you recognize, oh my gosh, but like, I need a little distance, because Hashem is actually too great. Then you come to a higher level of bittul, of that how can I even come close? I can't come close to Hashem. The only way that I can come close to Hashem is by negating myself, and this is the level of yira that the Tanya calls bittul, that negation, that I feel one with Hashem, and there is no me anymore. Like it's elevating ourselves from the place of I and thou to the place that it's only thou, and this is the second place that we find in yesterday's parsha that we talk about Yirat Hashem. And that is that at the very end of the parsha, so after Abraham succeeds in the test of Akedas Yitzchak, of sacrificing almost sacrificing Hashem, his son to Hashem, so Hashem says, Ati yadati ki yirei Elokim ata. Now I know that you have Yirat Elokim. Now I know that you have Yirah from Hashem. And I know that you didn't hold back your son from me. And so Hashem saw that after, this is the last test. This is after, if Yirah just meant that you know that there's a boss, so that Avram absolutely certainly has proven himself that he knows that there's a boss. Hashem says, leave your house. I'm going to leave my house. Hashem, he does everything what Hashem says, and only now, ki'ati yadati. Now I know that you have Yirat Elokim. Now that this second level of Yirat Elokim, this is the Yira begin to Yira v'shalat. This is the Yiras haremimus. This is the awe. This is that there is no longer an I and thou. This is that I'm actually becoming negated to Hashem. There is no me. That there is like the most basic thing that I could possibly want, just that my son should be alive. Like that to negate that is to negate my very essence. Is to negate my very existence. This is the level that we reach, like twice a day, when we say Hashem Echad. We say Hashem Echad. We say that Ein Od Milvado. We say that I close my eyes. If I'm going to open my eyes, then I need to exist. I need to have a consciousness. The only way that I can say Hashem Echad is only if I close my eyes. If I stop existing and I become simply a function of Hashem, I become simply negated to Hashem's existence, and this is the goal. But this is something which is not sustainable. This is something that is only for once in a while, and this is really the ultimate goal. That it says that Yerushalayim is called Yerushalayim because it's Yirah Shalem. This is the full Yirah. Yerushalayim is the expression of the fullest Yirah. And the fullest Yirah is negation. The fullest Yirah is that we actually don't exist, that there is, to come forth from the I and thou to that there is no me. I'm like, I stop existing. It's all you. And that's the feeling when you come to the Beis HaMikdash. When you come to the Beis HaMikdash, so then you completely forget your ego. Then you can trip. Then you can take your mushrooms, and then that's the true place that I stop existing, that I have no ego anymore. When I'm actually closing my eyes. That's Yirash Shalem, and so this is the sequence which is necessary, and that's why it's so dangerous. The person that starts life like that, if your first relationship with Emunah is just feeling Hashem inside of you, so then ultimately you're just serving yourself. Ultimately you're in an enmeshment. Ultimately there is no relationship here. And so the Bereshit, the first step to existence, the first step to Judaism, requires that there is this I and thou. It requires that this separation, this respect of the distance between us and Hashem, which is really so necessary in any relationship. And this is really the way that Hashem makes his relationship with us, that you can't have a relationship without respect of boundaries, without understanding that we are not the same, and that because I am not you, that's why you have an existence, and that's what makes you important. That's what gives you value, and that's why that's why your emotions are important. That's why your feelings are important. That's why your actions are important. So this is really, Hashem is really making the protocol for how every relationship is supposed to be. And only after you have these clear boundaries, so then we understand we understand that there's a separation, we understand that there's a distance, and we understand that there's rules, we understand that there's a place into which we fit, only then can we come to the place of love, and then from that place of love can we come to the place of bittul, the place which is really the ultimate goal, which is really not for this world. This is when we're talking about Yerushalayim, we're talking about an otherworldly kind of existence, and that in this otherworldly existence, so then really there is no us, and like we're completely free of our ego. So I bless us that we should have a healthy relationship with Hashem. I bless us that we should have this deep understanding, that before anything, so to know that Hashem created us and He runs the show, and there's an objective truth, and there's objective morality, and there are rules that we're being called upon to follow, and there's values that we're responsible to keep, and from this place of understanding that there's a Tao, to understand the value of the I, to understand the value of how awesome we are, and how because we are separate, because we are creations, so therefore our mitzvahs are so productive, are so meaningful, are so precious, and from that place of appreciating ourselves, that from that, so that we can come to the higher consciousness, which is to recognize that really on a deeper level, so then really it's all Hashem, and to recognize that even if there is no me, even like I'm willing to give up my very life for Hashem, and this is the realization of closing our eyes, and this is really that what we're dreaming for, that to recognize that at the end of times, and this is the Yerushalayim, to understand that to understand that we are actually truly part of Hashem's existence, and the entire concept of the ego was really only a facade, was really only illusion, and that is the greatest feeling, to feel eternal existence, to feel that at the end of the journey, so that we are actually a part of Hashem's eternal existence. That's only through the Yirat, that's only through the bittul, and B'ezrat Hashem, that is the goal. That is where we get at the end of this whole journey. B'ezrat Hashem.